Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Heartland Farm, and thank you for joining us for today's episode of The Toy and the Real McCoy. I was sitting watching a tractor pull Friday night out in Fonda, going to root on my friend Brian Brockway, and as I was sitting there, I was thinking, what should we do for this Sunday's episode? I put it out there, do you want a tractor or a truck? And I let people voice their opinion on it, and it was a little overwhelming this week that people wanted to see a truck. So we've got a special one for you, and we're going to do just that. But without forgetting to do this, we have to draw the name of anyone who shared the video from last Sunday so that we can properly award you a hat and a t-shirt for your effort in sharing the Toy and the Real McCoy. And we ask you once again to please continue to share our videos. We're having a nice time bringing the collection to the public and sharing it with people. And I just got done with an hour-and-a-half long visit here, three families from up in Quebec City who we ended up years ago selling a really nice Midwestern International 1466 tractor to, and they're in town camping and they wanted to come down and see what we've added to the collection, and they're very enthusiastic. We have a bit of a language barrier because my French is a little rusty. Once we get past we, I'm done. So, but thank goodness they had some that could interpret. The younger kids are bilingual. They speak English and French as well. So I'm going to draw the name for this week's winner for who shared the video last week when we did the International 5488. Hey, we got a local man this week too. It's Seth Goodspeed from over in Hartford, a hardworking farmer and business owner. So Seth, swing by the dealership, get yourself a hat and a shirt, and thanks again for sharing our video. And once again, just a reminder, if you would share our videos. This week, we're going to talk about one of the favorite things that, well, never mind one of the favorite. People say all the time, they say, all right, Tim, you got these trucks, you got these tractors, what's your favorite? And for no reason other than I've just been itching to do this, waiting for people to want to see a truck, we're doing my favorite in our entire collection, whether it's trucks, tractors, toys. Today is the favorite. This is the most special piece in the collection. It may not be the rarest, but it's darn near it, and it means the most to me of any of the stuff that we have here. And that is going to be the Dodge Bighorn semi-tractor. Now, if you say to somebody today, you know, a Dodge Bighorn, what is it? And they run right out and they show you in their parking lot a beautiful, shiny Ram pickup that has a Bighorn badge on it. Well, long before that Bighorn badge was on today's pickups, it was on trucks way back in the 30s. The Ram's head hood ornament didn't come out in the 80s. It was in the 1930s on the Dodge medium and heavy duty trucks of that era. But my mother was the vice president of the Dodge dealership here in town, and to save having a babysitter for me on Saturday, I used to go to work with her. And to busy myself there in what would otherwise be a boring setting, I used to go in the key room and get the keys and go over across the road and sit in all the medium duty trucks. And I'd pour over the window sticker and the line setting sheet and everything, learning about the trucks. And then I would go inside into the office where the sales manuals were, and I would go through this giant, big Dodge truck sales manual and paw through every page, every engine, every transmission, every rear end ratio, all the options. And that really is how I self-taught myself about medium and heavy duty trucks, was because of my love as a little kid, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, going to work with mom and trying to stave off boredom reading that book. Well, in 1973, there was the most pleasant surprise in that big Dodge truck sales manual. There was this most awesome semi-tractor. Literature was in there, and it was called the Dodge Bighorn. And it was introduced in 1973, made only for 3 years, 73, 74, and 75. It was as Dodge was, they didn't half the people in Dodge commercial truck division were hell-bent on growing that business, and the other half were hell-bent on getting out of the big truck business. So in the end, Chrysler was suffering financial issues, and they did get out of the semi-truck business in the 1975 model year with the last of the Bighorns, but they made medium and heavy trucks until 1977, and then it ended here in the United States. Although they did make mediums down in Canada, or down in Mexico, I'm sorry, for a long time afterwards, and in Europe under the DeSoto and Fargo brand, in Canada under the DeSoto brand, and I'm sorry, I get this all backwards, in Canada under the Fargo brand, and in Europe under the DeSoto brand for more years. They were truly loved. They were very heavy duty trucks and very well designed trucks. And we've got a lot of them here. So in time, you're going to see more and more of them. But today, you're getting the flagship of the fleet with our Dodge Bighorn. Dave, if you'll come in here and zero in, this is a little IXO toy model in 1/64th of a Dodge Bighorn. It's official model number CNT 950. C series, N for tandem, N for diesel, T for tandem. 950 was the model number. This was the promotional color of the Dodge Bighorn. It was a gold metallic. The first one that was made was sold to an owner-operator leased out to Beacons, which was a household moving company. His name was Jim Roop from out in California. And we used to have this Dodge magazine in the waiting room at the dealership. And there on the back cover was a big ad for the Bighorn tractor and Jim Roop driving his Bighorn, the first one sold to the public. And it was in this gold metallic color. And it's still got all the sales literature and all that stuff that I've collected over the years. But as life goes on, I got my commercial driver's license when I was 18, and I just clamored for the chance to one day see a Dodge Bighorn. And then as I started driving, I had hoped maybe to even drive a Dodge Bighorn. And I never actually saw one until the fall of 2000 at the Hudson Mohawk truck show, the ATHS truck show at the Ballston Spot Fairgrounds. Peter Grimm had one in the signature gold metallic there, beautifully restored by a man who they call Mr. Bighorn, Tony Youngblood, down in Augusta, Georgia. So I sat in the truck and I dreamed of it, and I said, oh boy, wouldn't I love to own one of these babies one day. Well, fate works in mysterious ways. My mother passed away in January of 2001, just within 4 months after I'd seen my first Bighorn. And in March, we were settling Mom's estate, and right about the time us 3 kids were each going to get a small inheritance. Mom had not had much money in her life, but she lived a frugal lifestyle and left us each a little money. And just as we were into the week that they were going to settle that estate, the Wheels of Time magazine, the American Truck Historical Society magazine, came out. And the first thing I do when I get in that magazine is go to the classified ads and see what's for sale. And sure enough, there's a Dodge Bighorn. Well, my wife had already gone upstairs, gone to bed while I was pouring through that magazine. I took the stairs 2 at a time. I get up there and I said, Jane, wake up. You aren't going to believe what's for sale in the Wheels of Time. And I showed her this ad for a Dodge Bighorn in Cardston, Alberta, Canada, with only 180,000 miles on it. And I said, this is what I'm going to spend my inheritance on. And she said, Tim, your mother would kill you. And I said, yeah, I know it, if she was still living in town. But since she's in heaven, I suspect she's going to have a little bit to do with whether I can pull this off or not. She says, you suit yourself. And so I started the next morning. I looked up Cardston, Alberta to see where it was, so I knew what time zone it was in. And I made sure that I wasn't calling the gentleman at an unrespectable time in the morning. So at 10 o'clock our time, which I figured was 7 o'clock their time, I called up and a man answered the phone. I said, hello, I'm calling about the Dodge Bighorn you have for sale. Is it too early? He says, oh no, I've been up since 5 o'clock. And he asked me how I knew about the truck, and I told him I saw it was for sale in the Wheels of Time. He says, he goes, I haven't even gotten my issue yet, which I think is kind of funny, because anytime I've ever called to inquire on something in the Wheels of Time, people say, oh gosh, that's already sold, because everybody else gets their magazine before we get ours. So there is some heavenly fate involved in this, that I'd gotten my Wheels of Time. The truck was still for sale, and the man on the other end of the phone was about as super a guy as you could ever talk to. We had a nice visit. He went on to explain to me the whole story of how he had the truck and that his family was the original owners of it, and it was in 1975, the last year of the Dodge Bighorn. I had read the specifications in the Wheels of Time. It had a 350 Cummins with a 13-speed, only 180,000 original miles on it. They had purchased 3 of them brand new at that time. And he went on to say that there was 3 brothers. The father had retired from the big grain farm, they're wheat growers, and that there was 3 brothers. One of the brothers, each of them had one of the Bighorns when the dad retired. One of the brothers went snowmobiling and was killed in an avalanche and never returned home. And so they were going to sell that one of the 3 Bighorns. And this was the one that was for sale, and it belonged to Ford Nelson. So that's kind of funny in that my mother worked at the Dodge dealership in Glens Falls. But the name of the garage was Ford Garage Company. It was a Dodge dealership. Made no sense. But you see, when Percy Ford started that garage in 1914, it was one of the original 6 Dodge Brothers dealerships in the United States, and the guy's name was Ford, so he called it Ford Garage Company, and that's the name that stuck with that corporation until it sold out in 1989. So here was Ford Nelson, sadly deceased. His Bighorn was for sale, and here I was negotiating on it. Enough for all that nonsense. It just means a lot to me. Come on over here. We're going to look at another toy Bighorn. This one tells a little bit about the Bighorn semis. There was 261 of them were made. 190, that's not right. 100 and, I can read that. 190 went to the United States, 70 to Canada, and 1 went to Mexico. So of the 70 that went to Canada, 3 of them were bought by the Nelson family and taken on their grain farm, where they hauled dump trailers hauling wheat from the farm, which was a big, expansive acreage, to the grain elevators. This toy I have had for many, many years, more than I've had the real one. We saw these advertised in the Toy Trucker. These were custom made by Dave, knew his name forever here, Dave Thompson, who owned a little company called Truckin' Little in Cameron, Wisconsin. Dave and I became friends through the toy show in Dyersville, Iowa, and I went on to tell him that my wife had bought me for Christmas one of his custom Dodge Bighorns. These toys started out as a B61 Mac first gear toy with a van trailer, and Dave Thompson bought enough of them to customize 261 of them. He made his own mold to make a Bighorn hood right here, and took the B61, which had a similar cab contour, and made it look like the Dodge CNT 950 Bighorn. He only made 261 because he said it would be wrong to make any more. There was only 261 real ones. So that's my Dave Thompson special. And when I was in negotiation with Cash Nelson to purchase his Bighorn that week that this all went down, he told me that he had brought it to the Iowa 80 truck show, their jamboree that they hold in July the previous year, just to show it off a little bit. And he goes, there's a guy from Wisconsin who just went crazy over it. He goes, he'd had some Bighorns. I said, that's Dave Thompson. He's a friend of mine. He goes, well, if you know that guy, call him. He'll tell you all about my truck. So sure enough, I get off the phone with Cash Nelson. I got on the phone with my friend Dave Thompson from Cameron, Wisconsin, who also, by the way, is no longer with us, sadly. And I talked to Dave, and he said, yeah, Tim, that truck is excellent. It's as real at 180,000 miles as you're ever going to find. If you don't buy it, you're a fool. And that was it. I called Cash Nelson back, and I said, you know, Cash, we're going to make a deal on that truck, and we bought it. And he and his wife, Jerry Jo Nelson, drove it out here, that week. As a matter of fact, this deal went kind of fast, and they drove it all the way from Cardston, Alberta. And we met them. We were supposed to drive west as they were driving east, but I had an obligation that week and I couldn't leave until later in the week. So he got as far as Syracuse, New York, and that's where the transaction occurred. It's where I met Cash Nelson and his wife Jerry Jo in person. I intended to send her a message this morning. Hopefully they're watching this. If not, I'll send her one tonight so they can watch it. They're fine, fine people, and they have since sold the farm, and now they have a catering trailer, and they follow the Ritchie Brothers auction circuit, if I'm not mistaken, with food catering for those big auctions held all over the United States and Canada. But anyway, here we have our Bighorn. It comes home. This is in March of 2001, shortly after I lost my beloved mom. It was the last toy she ever bought me. It's the one that I'll treasure for the rest of my life. Dave, zero in up here a little bit, if you would. Down in New Jersey, there's a custom builder named Dave Natal who builds just about any truck out of resin, and I commissioned him to build my Bighorn out of resin. So there it is in 1/25th scale with my toolboxes just the same. Everything as it is on our real truck, our quarter fenders, everything right down to the most minute detail inside the cab and out. My lube refiners, my battery boxes, my fuel tanks, my step boxes, everything the same. And that's just a beautiful piece of custom work done by Dave Natal down in New Jersey. So, enough of the toy. We're going to go over here. We're going to look at the real McCoy in just a second. Dave, don't go quite there yet. In 2005, I was in Indiana at the National Truck Show, the ATHS National. I met a wonderful man, called himself a transportation artist. His name is Lance Lowther. He was from London, Ontario, and I don't believe him still to be living. But he had an amazing talent, and he had all kinds of pictures that he had done for Canadian trucking companies, and he had taken the old owner and brought him back to life in these pictures, showing him driving the first truck the company had and parked next to the last truck the company has. Just an amazing, amazing talent. So I said to him, I'd like to have a painting done. And he took my name, and I never heard a word from him. Well, about 2 years went on, and he called me up. He goes, he said, there was something about you and your wife and your boys that really struck me. He goes, you were serious about wanting to get a painting done. And I said, absolutely I was. He says, he said, this isn't something that can be done lightly. My wife and I would have to come out and stay with you for a few days and learn about your life and your love for trucks and trucking and what it is that makes you want this truck recreated. And so they came out, he and his wife Esther, and they stayed out here, stayed at the Queensbury Hotel for a couple of nights. They spent most of the day with us at the dealership, all the evenings out here on the porch, learning about our life. I took him by the old garage where Mom worked. I told him about my start in life, about my wife, about my kids, about everything. And he left with a book satchel full of notes and a few photographs that he took. And then he called me about a year later and he said, Tim, I'm ready to start on your painting. And he went ahead and did it. So I'm just going to show you this is the print. The actual painting is in our home. So this is a 2/3 style. This is my first truck, a 77 Dodge W200 Power Wagon with its original license plate, my Myers snowplow, and my fog lights that I got at the auto parts store. One of them's crooked because I didn't mount it right, and it's crooked in the painting too because Lance is just good. This gentleman in the seat is my dad, Marshall Havens, and I lost him the same year I lost Mom. Mom and Dad split up when I was a little boy, so as you can see in the painting, we have them separated here. We didn't want to make something that wasn't so. This is my mother, deceased Diamond J. Havens. She would be 101 years old on July 10th this year, handing me the keys to the Bighorn. Over here is Tim Jr. with a Tonka dump truck. It was a very special toy to me as a kid when we lived down on the river. And me and Mom have a story about that dump truck, and that's why that was chosen. My wonderful and very patient wife, Jane, also known as Gadget. This is our cat, Sydney, our cat, Spencer, both deceased now. This is David on his John Deere Jeep, right full of hell as always. And this is my mother-in-law, Mary Lou, with a glass of iced tea. Anybody who knows Mary Lou knows that it isn't often she doesn't have one. And my father-in-law, Glenn, with his signature John Deere hat on, standing on the porch of our home. So that's the painting, but the big part here is that Mom is handing me the keys to the Bighorn. This is also a treasure. So now we have our real Bighorn here. This is a 1975 model, CNT 950. It has a small cam 350 Cummins engine in it, and a 125 13-speed Fuller Road Ranger in it. You'll see the grill bars are perfect on it. The grill screen is perfect. The big Bighorn hood ornament is priceless. This is a fiberglass tilt nose truck. This is an adaptation of the Dodge C-Series cab, which came out actually in 1957, and it's had iterations over the time. They used them right up until the last Dodge C-Series trucks were built in 1976. But what they did was they took and put this fiberglass tilt nose on here, streamlined the truck a little bit. It's a lot of hood when you're sitting in the seat. This truck has an amazing curb cut. It turns really short, has a 12,000-pound front axle, 38,000-pound Hendrickson rears. It has the 125 13 Fuller Road Ranger transmission in it, but it was originally born. All three of the Nelson trucks had the P85 16 Spicer married box 16-speed, which was a 4-speed transmission with a 4-speed air shift auxiliary, all bolted together, one case direct bolted to the other, no drive shaft between them. But Mr. Nelson didn't like the 16-speed transmissions. Something about the gear ratios in it weren't quite right for running alongside the combine. So the day they bought these three Bighorns from their dealer, they drove them across town to the transmission shop and had the Fuller 125 13s put in them. So this truck has got the custom cab interior. The molded plastic headliner breaks on these things pretty fast. So when this truck was repainted, it did get an upholstered headliner, which has got some acoustical padding in it. It's really a beautiful truck to drive. It goes down the road nice. for a spring suspension truck. It runs, drives, and shifts like a dream. And if you will look at the color, you'll notice that this one was originally the gold metal flake paint, just like the original ones that came out in 1973. So it's a really, really nice truck. It's authentic in that it did have the gold paint then. It was painted black at one time, so this truck was black, and then it has repainted to this beautiful two-tone red and burgundy paint scheme with the silver arrow down the side of it. Now, we have another truck we'll talk about another day that came off that same farm years later through happenstance, and it's this Dodge High Cab 900, which came off the Nelson farm up in Cardston, Alberta. But we're going to talk about that another day. But it has a very similar paint job to our Bighorn. So she's got twin stacks. It's a beautiful truck. She's a dream to drive. It's a pleasure to own. I'm honored to be among the very few that own a Dodge Bighorn. Of the 261 of these trucks made, there's really only about 100 left in existence. And I guess that wraps it up for this week of The Toy and the Real McCoy. Just a shout out to all the locals that next Monday, a week from this Monday, is Memorial Day. We're looking to get a bunch of you together to run your tractor through the Memorial Day parade. We're going to have a bunch of them coming off the farm here that are going to go through the parade, and a little potluck picnic out here afterwards. So thank you all very much. I know we're all going through tough times with the fuel prices, the world situation, and everything else. My advice is to keep your faith in God right in the front of your mind, and let's just make the best of it. I have an idea things are changing, and they need to, because we just can't suffer around much like this anymore. Please share our videos if you would, and if you would, Seth Goodspeed, stop by the dealership. You won yourself a hat and a t-shirt for sharing last week. God bless you all, and have a great week.